and wait, I'll record the class also. So yeah. So I'm Ashish. I've been teaching JE and JE physics, chemistry, maths, and Olympiad maths for the last several years. Uh, I was studying in IIT Madras. I graduated and I started my own company. So this is what I'm doing. Uh, you guys tell me about yourself. Like there are three of you right now. Like where are you from? Which grade? So that I know stuff. Right now it is all like I only know Navya, right?
Yes.
So tell me about yourself, one or two lines. What are you doing? What is your plan? What is the target before we begin? You can go, whoever can start. Harsh.
Yes, sir. Well, my name is Keshav. I'm using my brother's account. So
Okay, okay.
just
Your
playing
name
Harsh.
is Keshav.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Uh,
okay,
I'm
okay.
I'm from I'm from New Delhi.
Uh-huh.
I have cleared my school.
Uh,
Uh,
Cleared your school
Currently,
as in which class?
no, I have cleared my school.
So right now
I have done.
you're done with your
Yes, yes,
12th.
yes, yes.
Okay. So then you're preparing for Olympiads.
No, no, no. Yeah, I have written in the form actually, the
Okay, okay.
Google form.
Okay, I didn't check it, but you're preparing for ISI and all.
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, okay. Oh, you are the guy who was
Re,
speaking to the other day, right?
yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Fine, fine, fine.
Re, mm,
Uh, Fine. Okay. Hitarth is there, right? You should unmute yourself. What happened? Someone is saying something in chat. Oh, okay. Okay, he will rejoin. Navya, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Nave.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in class 9. I,
Hmm.
I also live in New Delhi. I
Hmm.
gave IOQM this year, but it went terribly because there was literally no algebra in it and there was 17
Yeah.
questions of geometry in it. So,
So basically, you hate this whoever's at the paper, right?
yes, whoever said the paper, he's my arch nemesis from now onwards.
Uh-huh.
But I just want to, I'm interested in maths, especially number theory.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, that's it.
And
Nothing.
the okay, fine. So there were no number theory questions, yeah? There were no some.
There were some number theory questions, but the last three questions of number theory were like very tough. One of them was
Hmm.
1 by A plus 1 by B is equal to 1 by C.
But that is
So
a classic problem.
yeah, that's the only classic problem. Otherwise, all of them were non-routine.
Okay. Uh, but I told you, no, so geometry is the most important thing in Olympiads. So if you are weak in geometry, it will not help. Like if
Yeah,
you're, yeah,
I've started I've started liking geometry now. So
yeah.
uh,
Basically, the idea is ultimately like geometry is the purest as in that is what maths that people have been doing for 2000 years. Like that is the oldest and the most pure branch, and number theory and geometry. So geometry is the dominant thing in Olympiad. So we have to focus on that and we have to be very strong in that. So you started a little late and you were ignoring geometry before. That's why it didn't go well. But later, now that you are going to prepare properly, it should be fine. So as long as we target like getting to a high level, it should be fine as we go along. Okay.
so I
Uh,
had a question.
One second, one second. Introductions are not done. No? Hitarth?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my name is Hitarth Mehra, and I live in Bangalore, Karnataka,
Okay. Okay. I'm also in Bangalore. Where are you in Bangalore?
in near HSR layout.
HSR layout, huh? Oh,
Yeah,
I'm also staying in HSR, man. Where are you? Where?
actually, I'm outside HSR, like near Kudlu Gate.
Okay, okay. So you go to some coaching class.
Yeah, in Allen, I go to Allen.
Which class are you in? Which grade?
I'm 10th. I'm in 10th, going to 11th.
Okay, okay. Okay. So right now you wrote IOQM this year?
No, I couldn't write. My parents didn't allow to
Oh,
go
travel.
there because of school exams.
Okay, okay. But generally, you are interested in JEE more, or Olympiad is the main focus right now?
Um, Olympiad is the main focus, but JEE also like
Eventually, you are
parallelly.
preparing for JEE, right?
Yeah.
So, Navya, you are also preparing for JEE, kya?
Yes, sir. I'm also giving JE.
Okay, okay. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So what we will do is we'll discuss like how the course is going to work, like 5 minutes, and what is going to happen and what is the plan for us. So I have already shared a course plan with you guys. You guys must have seen that document, right?
Yeah.
So course plan document has a plan that is written down for around 32 weeks. So 32 weeks worth of content is something that I am promising as part of the course. And that the sequence that we have decided is this. This is going to be the sequence in which we approach the topics. So, according to the document, I'm just looking at it right now. What we will plan is around 8 weeks of number theory. The last week will be quadratic reciprocity. This is a slightly advanced topic, but hopefully we'll try and cover as much of number theory as is important for INMO, Indian National Maths Olympiad level at least. We'll try to get to that level. And that is 8 weeks. So from now, you can imagine almost around 2 months from now, till that time. And the first 8 weeks are number theory. And then week 9 onwards, till week 18, we are going to focus on geometry. Week 18. So in geometry, again, we are going to do basic theory first and then some special techniques in the last couple of weeks. Last 3 weeks for geometry, if you notice in the document, is not any particular theory, but it is techniques. Look, like 16th week is, for example, coordinate geometry. 17th week is vectors and complex numbers. And 18th week is inversion. Okay. So these are just techniques. And before that, there is the theory part. So till week 15, we have to cover all of the theory that is there. And some of it might be familiar to you guys. Like, for example, first week of geometry is familiar to anyone who has prepared for PRMO. Week 9, points and lines in a triangle, right? Similarly, like, but week 10 onwards, we'll start getting into more detailed and more slightly advanced stuff. So week 10 is Cheva and Menelaus. Then after that, there is Steiner-Lehmer's theorem, orthic triangle, medial triangle. And then we go to slightly more advanced stuff. Week 13, 14, 15 onwards, there are circle theorems and circle properties and cyclic quadrilaterals and so on. So that is the overall plan. I intend to look at actual INMO papers of the last 20 years, 30 years and all, and decide what we are going to cover based on that. Like we will not do everything. Obviously, there is a limitless scope to keep doing things in maths. So this is obviously a very small selection of what we could do, right? You could learn it for years and still it will not be over. But we will do enough that we are able to approach INMO problems and some international maths Olympiad problems also with confidence. Like we have some tools at our disposal that we can do those things, right? So that is the idea. Then we go on to combinatorics. So in combinatorics, we have around from week 19 onwards till week 25, 19 to 25. So this is the plan. So earlier, if you notice or if you've seen, there is a YouTube channel that I was doing, and there was an earlier version of this course that I had done for 3 other students. And that time I had focused on a certain different set of topics. So for example, combinatorics I had done for them, but the focus was a little different there. Here I have tried to inculcate only those topics that will be immediately relevant for INMO. There I was mostly going into the theory of the subject and what are the general ideas in the subject. It was not very exam focused. So slight changes in organization here. So for example, you will see that week 19, week 20 is the basic PNC that you learn in for JEE. So if you're thinking of the JEE exam, only week 19 and week 20 is important. Okay. In combinatorics. So that much is enough PNC for IIT. But obviously for Olympiads, we have to know more. So we'll be doing generating functions, we'll be doing recurrences, we'll be doing pigeonhole principle, and several advanced methods like the correspondence method and pairings and all is slightly advanced. Again, week 25 is graph theory, which is totally advanced. It is something that I learned in college, for example. There was a course in graph theory for us in college. So that is something that is even useful for Olympiads. And people who are serious aspirants for international Olympiads and all, they learn a lot of graph theory. So that is week 25. After that, we have algebra. So algebra part is therefore divided into mainly 2-3 topics. So in algebra, actually, the topics that you have are inequalities, functional equations, and theory of equations. These are the topics. Functional equations and theory of equations.
Polynomials.
तो theory of equations में polynomials comes in, right?
Okay.
Theory of equations has all of the polynomial stuff, right? Because you will find roots of a polynomial only, no? So this part is that. And functional equations is really hard. Inequalities is also really hard. I mean, I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm just saying that as a fact. Like these are difficult topics, okay? So it is difficult to master these things very easily. Now, inequalities also, for example, can be of two types. There can be like algebraic inequalities, and there can also be geometric inequalities. So in the weeks that I have outlined, I have spent 3 weeks on inequalities. I have not actually written down whether we'll be doing geometric inequalities as well. However, we will do that. Like I forgot to mention that, like we will have an extra class or something. We'll have to do a little bit of geometric inequalities also, because nowadays the trend is that they combine questions in geometry and algebra. They will not give a pure geometry question or a pure algebra question. What they will do is they will have a mix. So if they want to combine an inequality problem with a geometry problem, they will do that. So we will try to learn both of those things. Functional equations is again quite hard. There are some reference books, but for a student who is starting out, it is very difficult to follow those books. Like, for example, Venkatachala's book on functional equations is quite difficult. Like, if you start, have you ever heard of that book?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You have seen that book, no?
So I told you that I was in a lecture with Venkatachala, right? So he gave a question from that book.
So that functional equation book, if you have tried doing anything in that, you'll realize very soon that it is very difficult. Okay. So like I have tried doing things in that. So it is super hard, dude. So the point is that there is a lot to learn, and you have to approach it with a spirit of curiosity. You understand? Like obviously in 8 months, even if we do everything properly and perfectly, right? 8 months we prepare like this. It is not necessary that we will be able to solve every question in this, right?
Yes, sir.
Like maths, you cannot guarantee anything. Like I cannot guarantee that I will be able to solve enough. Like nobody can guarantee actually. Okay. So, but the process of learning and the process of problem solving itself is the fun part. And itself, that part itself, when you're learning and you're able to solve certain difficult problems that last week you could not solve, that part is the fun part. And you have to approach it with that spirit. Like I am learning how to problem solve, and sometimes I'll fail. Most often you will fail, most of the times. But when you have that successful attempt to solve a particular question, the joy that you feel is worth it. Like that is the whole thing. And eventually, if you follow a good plan, and eventually if you stick to the basics the way we have discussed, and solve enough problems, get into the habit of problem solving, not giving up immediately. These are the important things to keep in mind while solving problems. Don't give up very soon. Try different things. Don't go with your preconceived notion of a problem. And once you get into the habit of doing things like that, things become easier, and you will at least be able to approach things. Like even if in an INMO paper, there are only 6 questions, right? 6 questions are there for 3-4 hours, right? So if you make a good attempt also, you will get partial marks. If you are on the right track, you will get partial marks. You understand? If you have proved half of it and you could not do some final step, you will get 1 or 2 marks there. So all of it counts. The effort counts, right? So that is the whole idea. The plan is to get ready for INMO, RMO level papers. So immediately as a follow-up of that, if you do this well in 32 weeks, you should be acing PRMO. PRMO should not be a problem. You understand? Like the level of these classes and the questions that we will be discussing is higher than PRMO. So PRMO will be smooth sailing if you focus for the next 8 months. So that is our idea. Okay. Obviously, as and when needed, we might do some extra sessions or some doubts. I will go into the course logistics for a bit. So the way we plan is one class per week, unless there is some extra class. There might be some extra class if something is unfinished or I need to tell you something more. But this is the plan, and there will be assignment problems that will be given to you. I have already shared the first week's assignment.
Yes, okay, sir.
Everyone has that PDF, right?
Yes, sir.
All three of you, right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So already first week assignments is with you, and every week we'll have those assignment problems. There will also be some in that document. What I will be doing is I'll be adding on to that document. So after this, the next 2-3 days, I will be making the second week stuff, and I'll share it with you guys. So that document will keep getting updated and keep getting bigger and bigger, and that will be our course book. So in that course book, we will have in-class discussion problems, like problems that we will discuss in class, and also assignment problems. Hopefully at the end, for some specific problems, I might even add a little bit of hints and solutions types. If there are some nice problems that need something, then I will add some hints and solutions after the discussion for that is over. And so what I expect is every week after the class is over, the next 7 days is time for you to try the assignment as much as you can. And if you are able to solve like 60-70% of that assignment, then 60 to 70% if you can solve or more, then you know that you have understood the topic, and now you can attempt any problem on that, right? So that is the understanding. So please be very diligent about it and try those assignment problems for sure before coming to the next class, okay? So because if you fall behind, then I cannot do a recap or an all. I cannot do that. You will have to go back to the old lecture and you'll have to look at it and try it yourself, right? Because I am also a little strapped for time. It's not like I have a lot of time, right? So what we will also be doing during the week is, if you are stuck on a problem, in an assignment, then you can message me on the group that we have created for the class. Don't message me on any other group. Message only on the group that we just now created for the class, right? And if you're stuck on one particular problem in the assignment, just let me know. I can give you some hint, or I can send you some solution or something, right? But that is only something that you resort to it's like a last resort sort of a thing. Don't like ask me, sir, question 12, then someone else asks question 13. You understand? Like, I mean, you should attempt everything yourself and give it plenty of time to solve yourself, and only then will you really learn, right? So with that, I will open the floor to questions from you guys, like 2-3 questions we can take. And if questions are done, then we'll actually start the topic. Any doubts, any issues, any problems, if anybody has?
So I had a question.
What?
So will we only have one class a week? So only one class a week for the...
One class a week, unless required. I mean, for some topics, we might need one more class.
Okay.
Like, I am not planning for the other extra class, but if something is unfinished or we need something more, then we'll have one extra class.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, sir, you mentioned in the, what do you call it, document, which one? The course plan, the geometry book, A Friendly Introduction to Number Theory. I don't have that book, but I have gotten. Will that do, or do I need to buy that book?
Don't have to buy any books. So in the plan that are there are references that are assigned, right? So the references column for each week has set of books that might be useful. It is not necessary to buy those books. What is important is, like, what I can do is I can send you the PDF for this. Like, I have the PDF. You can find it on LibGen for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll be able to find the PDFs of these books on libgen.io, which is our great piracy site. So you'll find it for free. So don't need to buy the book. You can also refer to other books. The important thing to notice is that we will be focusing on the topic. It's not about the book. It's about the topic that we are studying, right? So whichever book is working out for you, it's fine. As long as you're able to solve the problem set, right? Like, it doesn't matter which book you're studying from. unless there might be some cases where the book is really good and you need to study from that book. But in general, if it's a common enough topic, every book will introduce it in a nice way, right? So so you don't have to stress out about which book to follow and all. The book is only as a reference. The book is not the source that we are solving, right? So what we are solving is the problems that I will be sharing in the class and in the assignment. And obviously those problems also are from some books, right? It's not like those problems are coming out of nowhere. So they are also from a collection of problems from some good books, right? So just focus on the problem set more and focus on the books after that. Like the books are just a reference thing. If you have understood, if you need some more things, then you can look at these books. These books might be useful. So that's all that I want to talk about there. Any other questions? I can send you all of these books, by the way. Just remind me if you don't have these books, the PDFs for all of these books are available. For example, in week 11 onward, there is EGMO and there is Secrets of Triangles. So Secrets of Triangles is a book by Posamentier, Alfred S. Posamentier. Secrets of Triangles. This is a really nice book. It's a book only about triangles and geometry of triangles. Alfred S. So that is a really nice book. So that book also, I think PDF will be available online. If you search, you'll get it. So that is the book that I'm talking about in the reference column. And EGMO is obviously Euclidean Geometry in Maths Olympiad by Evan Chen. So if you don't have these books, just message and you'll get these books. I will send it to you on the group. Okay. What else? Tell me.
Yeah, how many hours do we need to devote, like, except like besides the class?
Problem set, dude. Problem set. How many hours it takes to solve it?
Okay.
Right. It's not like there's no rule about these things. Okay. It's not like I can tell you, ki, please spend 5 hours in the week for this, and that will be enough, right? Like if somebody spends 20 hours in the week, then he will be better. You understand? Like it's up to the person, no? And up to your situation. Like you are in 10th standard, you have some other issues also to deal with, right? You have some board exams also coming up and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not like everybody's situation is exactly similar. So sometimes if you have time, if you have interest, you can spend more time on it. The more time you spend, the better you will be. But ultimately, you should judge yourself by, have I spent enough time and have I solved enough problems from the problem set? Yeah. If I'm able to do that much, then I think that's enough. Because I will not make the problem sets of a certain size only on something like that. Like, for example, this problem set had around 10 to 15 questions. Sometimes the problem sets will be longer and it will cover everything. Like I will try to make it as comprehensive as possible. Okay. So if there is a particular topic, we will try to cover all possible variations that we know of. And it might be longer. So if some problem set might be smaller, some problem set might be slightly long, right? So it's up to you. Like if it is happening very fast, then good for you. But otherwise it might take a little more time, right? But there's no time requirement and all. And there are no rules like that to be followed when you're studying for something. Like when you're learning a subject, there is no rule. No, if you're really into the subject, you will spend a lot more time than what I can say, right? So don't worry about that so much. What else? Any other questions? Nobody has any questions?
So how many questions will be there in every problem set?
Abhi to bola na. There is no rule.
Okay. I thought.
I just said right now that there will be no rule. That is the rule, that there is no rule. Okay.
Okay.
Right now in the first problem set, I can see there are
10 questions, no?
No, that is the question number, but actually there are parts to each also. There are, I think, 20 questions in the first one only. 15, 20 questions are there. So, and some of them will be hard. So there will be no like such rule. There will be just like, we'll make it as comprehensive as possible. Like whatever we see is important and relevant, I will try to include that. Anyway, I think everybody understands what the process is going to be. So I'll not waste any more time. We'll start. Okay. So the topic for the first week is mathematical induction. And why have I chosen this as my first topic? Does anybody have any idea why?
So because it introduces proof writing.
Yeah, like basically without knowing how to write proofs, no, you cannot do any questions where in RMO you cannot get marks, right? RMO, INMO, you have to show your work, right? So
Yes.
unless you can prove and unless you can demonstrate that you know how something has come, you will not be able to do anything. You will not be getting any marks. So proof writing is not something that you learn very well in school. So for example, if you think of your 9th and 10th standard, I doubt that much of proof writing you have done. Like you have probably done a little bit of proofs in geometry, but that also are very trivial things, right?
Yes, sir.
So there is not much introduction to proof writing. And also because now JEE has become objective, like last 10, 15 years, nobody really prepares for proofs. And even if you join some top coaching class for JEE and all, no, they will teach you techniques to get the answer, but they will not show you how, or they will not focus on that so much, right? So even smart kids who are preparing for JEE and who are doing well, they are also sometimes finding it difficult to write the proof, right? So mathematical induction is a standard proof technique, the most powerful proof technique that we know. And that is something that is introduced in NCERT in 11th and 12th in maths, but very trivial examples are there in NCERT. Okay. So obviously that is not enough for us to prepare for a difficult exam. So what we learn is mathematical induction here, and mathematical induction, the intuition behind that. Like first we'll understand why it works and what is it, and then the different forms of induction, and how you can write a proof using different ways, applying the same principle in different ways. And then we'll go into the in class, the discussion problems that I've outlined. So if you see some of the questions, they are not very trivial. Like first question is trivial, but third and fourth questions you will realize are not trivial at all. Have you seen the discussion problems?
Yes, sir. So third one is Bernoulli's inequality, right?
Third one is you might be able to use Bernoulli's, but Bernoulli's is not what we are focusing on when we are trying to prove it. I mean, it will be difficult to prove it by Bernoulli's, I think.
No, like the third one says prove Bernoulli's inequality.
No, that is what you're looking at is the assignment. I'm talking about the first page, right? In class problems, right?
Oh, okay, yes.
You're looking at the assignment, I think. One second, let me just open my document once. Everyone should open their document at least 1 second. Is everyone having the document with them right now? All three of you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing, we have divided number theory into 12 topics, and we'll be covering these 12 topics. And the first topic is mathematical induction. Now, the first section only says that there are some in-class problems, 5 of them.
Yes.
Right? Those 5 problems we'll be trying to discuss today. Okay. So before we go to that, let's understand who knows anything about what is mathematical induction. Does anybody know anything?
Yes, sir.
Tell me.
So it's a method used to prove a statement or a conjecture. So it says that if a property is true for natural numbers n, then it must be true for n is equal to 1 and n is equal to n plus 1. And if it's true for both n and n plus 1, then it's true for all natural numbers.
I mean, you have skipped on some things there, but idea is same. It's just that we are trying to prove a property about some natural numbers, or actually not a property about natural numbers, but a property which can be expressed in terms of some n, right? So let's say, look at the third question, for example. The third question in the in-class problem, or second question actually, right? look at the second question, everyone. It says, let x and y be real numbers satisfying that x plus y, x square plus y square, x cube plus y cube, and x power 4 plus y power 4 are all integers. Prove that x power n plus y power n is an integer for any natural number n, right? So what we are saying here is that we have to prove that x power n plus y power n is an integer, right? For all natural numbers n. For all natural numbers n. So basically, natural numbers n. Basically, what happens is that n is a variable by which we can sort of say many statements, right? We can say if n is equal to 1, the property says that x plus y is a natural number, is an integer. If n is equal to 2, we say that x square plus y square is an integer, right? And so on. If you keep changing the value of n, then you are getting different versions of this statement, no?
Yes.
So basically we are saying that P of n is a property that can be described using a natural number n. So I want to prove the statement for n is any natural number. The way the induction proof works is by saying, first prove it for some base case. First prove some baseline value, like n is equal to 1, let's say we can prove. Then assume that it is true. Assume that the property Pn is true for n, for natural number n. And using that assumption, if you can show that it is true for n plus 1, then we have proved the whole property. So I will come to that. What it means, think about it. P of n is a property. Since n is a natural number, how many statements do you have to prove here, actually? If you, infinite statements. No, actually proving that P of n is true means you have to prove infinite different statements, no?
Yes.
So there is no way in which you can do it one by one, right? Can you do it like, I will do P of 1 first and then P of 2 and then like that is not going to happen, right?
No.
It's impossible to do it like that, because many times you will find there are cases when you will verify the property till n is equal to 100,000, but it will be wrong for n is equal to 234,587. You understand? It may be correct for every integer from 1 to 100,000, but that doesn't guarantee it will be correct for this integer. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
There are classic examples of this happening. Like there is some Mersenne prime and all, no? There is an example.
Yes. 2 raised by n.
2 power n plus 1 or something, right? Something like this. There is an example that people thought, some mathematician thought that this is going to be a prime number. Okay. And he verified it till many numbers, and then Euler came along in 1700 and proved that it is actually factorizable if n is some large number. He found the factors. You understand? So there are many ways in which things can go wrong if you assume that, okay, I have checked it till n is equal to 10. Now it feels like it is right? That is not a proof. Okay. So therefore, if you have to prove something for infinite numbers, then you need a strategy. You cannot do it by doing cases, right? You need a proper method. So what is that method? That is the method of induction. So that method is understood in this way. So think of induction, or think of trying to prove it like trying to climb an infinitely high staircase. Infinite staircase, okay? Like, why am I making it a staircase? Because obviously it makes sense. N is 1 here, n is 2 here, n is 3 here, right? And so on, right?
Yeah.
You have to go up, right? You have to prove everything. You have to prove an infinitely long staircase. You have to go up, right? Now, the induction method works like this. It says that the method is saying, first prove it for n is equal to 1. First prove the statement for n is equal to 1. Okay. So that means in layman's term, I can write it as, can you get onto the staircase also or not? Like, can you step on the staircase at least? Like, can you stand here at least, right? Base case. You understand? Are you understanding this statement that you are actually starting out? Can you start at least the problem? Is the first case true, right?
Yeah.
The second thing is, the second statement is a very powerful statement. It says that if I'm on a particular level, right? If I'm standing here, am I able to take the next step and go till here? Like, if I'm standing here and I'm able to take the next step and go to the next step, that means this step process is working for me, right? Taking a step is fine. I can take a step, right? So how do you say it mathematically? What that is that if the statement is true for some n, can you go to the n plus 1 and see that the statement is still true? If the statement is true for some n, is it still true for n plus 1? Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The statement is true for n means if you are already at some step here, are you able to climb up to the next higher step? Are you able to prove it for n plus 1 from there, right? So that is, if you think about it, that is very important. And that is the reason why this method works. Because what happens is that, okay, if this is working, then that means I can take a step above from any place, right? As long as I am at step number 3, I can go to step number 4, right? Correct. And as soon as I am at step number 4, I will be able to go to step number 5. So obviously the whole sequence now you can rise up. If you have your base case, if you get on the staircase, you will be able to take a step here, take a step here, take a step here, right? Is everyone following what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the method of how do I prove something when I have to prove infinite statements? Actually, I don't prove infinite statements. I prove only 2 things. I prove that can I make the first statement? And once that is true, that means I am on the staircase now. And then what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to say that if my first statement is made, can I go to the next step? Can I go to the second statement from there? Yes, if that is true, then obviously I'll keep adding steps, right? Then I don't have to prove anything then. Then it's over.
Okay.
So basically that is the idea. So this is the first form of mathematical induction. This is the first form of induction. First form means in this, the steps are this. Prove base case, prove for n is equal to 1. Second step is assume that you are already on n is equal to n, let's say. I should have used k. K is equal to 1 and assume that you are true for k is equal to n. From that assumption, can you prove the property? Can you prove the property for k is equal to n plus 1? Can you prove the property for k is equal to n plus 1, right? So that means you are taking the next higher step. If step number 1 is working and if step number 2 is working, using this assumption, you can prove it for k is equal to n plus 1. Then the statement P of k is true for all natural numbers. Because then you can do it for all numbers. You can keep going to higher numbers, right? Correct?
Yes.
So that is the first form of mathematical induction. There are variants to this also. Second form, for example, is saying that in the second form, you have your base case is basically k is equal to 1, 2, 3 till n minus 1. If all the statements prove that it works for, okay, no, not this is not the base case. Base case is k is equal to 1 only. So prove that it is true for k is equal to 1. And the assumption in the second step. So second step assumption is assume that the property is true for all k less than n. That the property is true for all k less than n. And using that, prove that property is true for n plus 1. So this is a slight variation. This is sometimes called the stronger form of mathematical induction, because here the assumption here is a little stronger, no? This assumption is actually much stronger. This assumption is saying, assume that P of 1, P of 2, P of 3 till P of n minus 1 are all true. Are you understanding?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you are saying that every step till now is true. If that is the case, if I can go to the next higher step, then I am saying that then pk is true for all natural numbers. True for all natural numbers. So,
Sir,
so
how do we get to know when to apply the weak form or the strong form?
it depends on the questions. So sometimes you will try to do this and there is no way to know it, right? So that is something that you will have. This problem that you have just said is something that you will face constantly when you're preparing for Olympiads. You don't know, or there's no method to get to know what to apply, right? Like, there is no way in which you will know that, oh, this one I should apply this one. There's no way. You just know that from experience and looking at a particular problem. I will try this. I will try this. It does not work. Maybe I should try this. You understand? And maybe
Yes,
that
sir.
will work. There is no method, or there is no guaranteed secret that I can tell you by which you will realize that which method is to be used. But these are the two methods. You can try one method. If it doesn't work, try the other method. See if it happens, right? So we will see questions which will explain all of this. Okay. So let's begin with, have you understood basically what the idea is here? Mathematical induction. Okay. Okay. So then we'll go to questions because that is the best way to understand it more. The first question is super easy. I hope everyone can do that. 1 by 1 into 2 plus so on till 1 by n into n plus 1 is equal to 1 minus 1 by n plus 1, right? This is what we have to prove. Anybody has any ideas on what to do here?
So first verify it for n is equal to 1.
Yeah, the base case.
So base case, let's verify. So this is the side that we have to verify. So if n is equal to 1, then I cannot take this term, right? The first term only is 1, no? 1 and 2, right?
You'll only take the first term.
So it will only be the first term, right? And this side will be what? 1 minus 1 by 2. So 1 by 2. So this is matching, right?
Yes.
Base case is working out. Okay. So then what I have to do, assume that it is true. Assume that the statement is true for k is equal to n. Till n it is true. So that means what I can assume is that 1 by 1 into 2 plus 1 by 2 into 3 plus so on till 1 by n into n plus 1 is equal to 1 minus 1 by n plus 1. I have assumed this. I have to prove, using this, I have to prove that 1 plus 1 by 1 into 2 plus 2 into 3 and so on till 1 by n into n plus 1 plus one more term, no? I have to take the next term, right? So that will be n plus 1 into n plus 2, right? Correct?
Yes. Is equal to
1 minus 1 by n plus 2.
Yes.
So this is what I have to prove using this assumption, using this.
Yes.
So using this assumption, if I have to prove, then let's just use it directly here. The first portion can be written as 1 minus 1 by n plus 1, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
1 minus 1 by n plus 1 and one more term, which is this last term.
Yeah.
So plus 1 by n plus 1 into n plus 2. So now it is very easy because just simplify it. So 1 by 1 plus n plus 1 common, 1 by n plus 2 minus 1, right? So this becomes what? This becomes on top, it becomes, I will just write it here, okay? The simplification. 1 plus 1 by n plus 1. This is becoming 1 minus n minus 2. So that is minus 1 minus n, right? By n plus 2, right? Correct? Is everyone seeing that this is coming,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yeah.
So clearly this is cancelling, no?
Hmm.
So it is coming, right?
Yes, sir.
It is coming. It's a very simple question. You just use the result from the nth step and you are able to prove it for the n plus 1th step. Therefore, that satisfies the properties of induction and you are able to say that the statement is true for all n, right?
Yes.
If someone had asked you to prove this question without using induction, you should still be able to do it. It's actually very easy because it's a telescoping series,
Yeah.
right? Like you can split the term. Each numerator you can split as 2 minus 1, 3 minus 2, 4 minus 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cancellation method.
Yeah. So as soon as you split each numerator as 2 minus 1 and all, what happens is each fraction becomes a difference of two terms. Correct?
Yeah. N plus 1 minus n.
So 1 second. Keshav, are you getting everything? You're not saying anything.
No, yeah, I'm getting it, sir.
Okay. So make sure that if you're not getting something, you can pause and talk to me, right? Don't be
Yes,
quiet
sir.
and all and not understanding and being quiet. That is not cool. Okay. So this is obvious. This is very easy. So as soon as you split it apart, you get 1 minus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3. No, 1 by 2 minus 1 by 3 plus 1 by 3 minus 1 by 4 and so on, right? It is 1 by n minus 1 by n plus 1, right? And all the terms get cancelled and it becomes simply 1 minus 1 by n plus 1. So directly you can do this, but it was so easy that the direct method is easier than induction. Most of the problems, that will not be true. Because as soon as you come to, for example, the second question, right? Second question, is there any direct way that you can think of?
So how to do the first one using first form of induction?
We used only first form of induction in the first one.
So
Just now what we did was we took only base case P of 1, then we said assume P of n and prove for P of n plus 1.
oh yeah. So how to do it using second form?
Here it is not important. Second form you don't have to. Here second form is saying that assume everything is true from P2, P3 till Pn, right?
Yeah.
So it is not even required, no. First form से ही हो जा रहा है.
Okay.
Like it's not required to use those things, no, to prove it.
Okay. Okay.
Although it is true, but it's not necessary for solving it, right?
Yeah.
But
Okay.
sometimes it will be required. Sometimes just doing this much will not work. So that time you might use it. You
Okay.
understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, how to format the answer? Is there any way? Is there any format to write the proof of induction? Like
the thing is, right? Step 1, prove base case. We are proving for n is equal to 1. Prove the base case. Step 2, assume.
Okay,
That's the way. There is no format, dude. You can do whatever you want. As long as
Okay.
it is clear to the person who will read that answer what you are doing, right? There is no rule. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Question 2. Question 2 is, okay, so everyone think about question 2. So it is saying that let x and y are real numbers and it is given that x plus y, x square plus y square, x cube plus y cube, x power 4 plus y power 4 are all integers. You have to prove that x power n plus y power n is an integer. Is an integer. Right? Now you see that here, the way the question is stated, it feels like you have to use second form of induction. Do you see?
Yes, sir.
Because see, this is P of 1, no? And this is P of 2, right? And this is P of 3. And this
So
is P of 4.
Is there any significance for the like P of 4 up till P of 4 is given?
There might be. First, you have to try to do the induction part. Then you will realize that maybe there is a significance, right?
K is 5.
Huh? K?
K is 5.
K is 5. No, in the second form, when you're proving, you have to assume it is true till n or n plus 1, whatever, right?
Okay.
You have to assume that every step before is true, right? Here, however, he has given first 4 terms are true, right?
Yeah.
You have to actually prove it for n is any integer, right? You don't have to prove it for only 5, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, but because he has given P2, P3, P4, that tells me that maybe he's trying to give us a hint that you have to use second form.
Okay.
Right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise he would have just said that x plus y is an integer and prove that x power n plus y power n is an integer, right?
Yeah. Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, got it.
He could have just given us the first thing as an integer and asked to prove, right? And you will realize when we solve the problem that if you just assume first thing is an integer and then try to prove this, it is impossible.
Yes, sir.
So that means the first form, the weaker form of induction, will not give the answer in this case. You have to use the P2, P3, P4 and all somehow. Only then will you be able to prove it actually.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is why I introduced the 2 forms, because in this question, he's giving you extra information also, which is important in the problem solution. So now think about it. Your Pn is this.
So base case is trivial.
Base case is obvious, P of 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can assume for pk to be an integer. The
So
statement.
You can, what I will suggest is assume that P of n, everything till P of n and P of n plus 1, everything till P of n plus 1 is true. And try to prove from there P of n plus 2. What am I saying? I'm saying till P of n plus 1, P of 1 to P of n plus 1. Assume that everything is true. And from there, try to prove for P of n plus 2 is true. Tell me, you are raising your hand.
So when do we know where we have to apply the first principle of induction and the second principle of induction, or the second form of induction?
That was what he also asked, dude. Okay, sure. But you don't know that. There is no, when do we know? There is no rule, no. It's just that here, what is the hint? He is telling you P of 2, P of 3, P of 4 are true.
Yes.
Why did he tell you that? He could have not said all of these things, right?
Yes.
Then if he had not said, then which form it would have been?
Then first form.
Why is he saying all this? That means second form you should use, no?
Okay.
So what I'm saying is assume that everything till P of n plus 1 is true. And from there, try to prove P of n plus 2 is true. That is equally valid. Don't get confused by n and n plus 1. Why did I go till n plus 1? There is no reason. I'm only going there because I don't want to write negative power so much. Are you understanding what I'm saying? I could have done P of 1, P of 2, till P of n, everything is true, and I have to prove P of n plus 1 is true. This is also equally valid statement. I'm just extending it to n plus 1 and going to prove P of n plus 2. Why am I doing that? Because I don't want x power n minus 2 and things like that in my expression. I want to make it as simple as possible, that final thing. Is everyone following what I'm saying right now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So you can go till any step. It's not like I have gone till n plus 1, that is a different thing. You can go till any step. You have to assume that everything till that step is true and prove the next step. You understand? So I would suggest that you assume everything till Pn plus 1 is true. So that means your assumption is that x power n plus 1 plus y power n plus 1 is an integer. And all other lower powers are also integers. And from there, now I have to prove that P of n plus 2 is true. So you have to prove that x power n plus 2 plus y power n plus 2 is an integer.
Like you.
Hmm.
Sir,
Hmm.
the P of n plus 2 can be written as P of n plus 1 times P of n.
P of n plus 1 times P of n. Nahin. P of n plus 1
Like
times P of n would be 2n plus 1 degree. No?
Oh, wait. P of 1. P of
Dhyan
1.
se. X power
Yes.
n plus 2 plus y power n plus 2 will be equal to what? X plus
power
1 into
x power 1 n plus 1 plus y power n plus 1
minus 2 terms.
yes sir, x y
X
time
y n plus 1 minus, right?
yes sir, yes, minus x y n plus 1.
Correct.
Yes sir.
This factorization everybody is understanding, no?
Yeah.
I'm just writing it in terms of things that I know. So I'll take xy common here, and this becomes x power n plus y power n, right?
Yeah, correct.
Right. So now notice that I have to prove that this side is an integer, but I already know that this is an integer. And this is also an integer by my assumption.
Yeah.
And this is also an integer because strong form of induction we are using.
Yes, sir.
If we are using strong form of induction, we are assuming every lower step is true. Right? If you are using basic form of induction, then you are stuck here, right?
And so we can prove that xy is also an integer because x square plus y square is an integer, and x
So
plus y
that is the part that you have to prove now. Prove that this is an integer.
done, sir.
Okay, how? Tell me.
So we know that x square and y square is x square plus y square is an integer, and we know that x plus y is an integer.
Okay, so xy you are saying is x plus y whole square minus
x square minus y square.
No, by 2.
Yeah.
So then it is not proved.
No, sir, but
It's not proved yet.
1 second.
Yeah. So
X minus y square is equal to xy integer.
Is everyone understanding that xy, if it is an integer, then our question is done, right?
Yes.
how would we use cubes?
That is the next step, but are you understanding this step? That only this part we have to prove that it is an integer, right?
Yeah.
Then the whole thing becomes integer and my last step is true, so the question is done. So the question is now about prove xy is an integer. Xy is an integer. Given some information is known to us that x plus y is an integer, x square plus y square is an integer, x cube plus y cube belongs to integer, and x4 plus y4 also belongs to integer. These things are given to us. So the first step that you were saying, Navya, is correct. You can say that 2xy is equal to x plus y whole square minus x square plus y square, right? However, this is an integer, but this doesn't mean that xy is an integer, right?
Yes, because xy can be half and RHS.
Could be odd,
Yeah.
right? So xy is coming out to be m by 2, some number by 2, right?
Yes.
So if m is odd, then it is ruining the whole thing, right?
Yes.
Like if m is an odd number, then xy is coming as a fraction. So
then can we prove that m has to be even? We can take it modulo 2 because
you can try whatever you want, but you have to somehow prove that m cannot be odd.
okay, sir. Give me okay, plus 1. Y is equal to even minus 1 plus 4.
Can we use the formula of x plus y whole cube?
Is it coming? See, x plus y whole cube, the problem comes where it becomes divisible by 3 and all, right?
Oh,
So
yes,
already by 2 to ho raha hai, that is itself a problem, right?
yes.
If it becomes slightly by 3 and all, that will be even more annoying, no?
Okay.
3xy x plus y will come, no?
Yes.
So that 3xy will be a problem, no? Again, same problem. Is it divisible by 3 or not, right?
Yes, sir.
So that is not going to help. So let's not complicate our matters by using cube.
We can prove by contradiction.
Prove by contradiction is the right approach.
Done.
Huh?
Done.
How?
So I took x is equal to 2k plus 1 and y is equal to 2k plus 1.
That, how have you assumed that?
So because they can either be, oh, okay. I thought that, okay, sorry. I made a mistake.
Yeah. Proof by contradiction, Hitarth, that is the correct way to do it. So think of what you could do with proof by contradiction. So assume that it is odd for now, right?
Yeah.
Where m is odd, and let's say xy is m by 2. So what else can you do with it? Can you get xy in some other way also? Like using some of these things, let's try to get xy in some other way also. So what we can do is, let's use fourth power and square, no?
Yeah.
Fourth power and square. So what we can say is x square plus y square whole square will be what? X power 4 plus y power 4 plus 2x square y square, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Now, since this is an integer, this is an integer. So you get integer is equal to 2x square y square, right?
Yeah.
Correct. So you're getting x square y square is equal to integer by 2, right? And x square y square is what? M square by 4, right?
Yeah.
Integer by 2. So m square is equal to 2 times some integer. M square is coming even. Is everyone seeing the contradiction?
Yes. So could you repeat once?
Everyone else, what have you guys seen? You understand what is happening?
Yeah.
M is odd. Xy is equal to m by 2. If m is odd, that is our problem case, right? If m is even, it's already done, right?
Yes.
So I will assume it is odd. I'll assume m is odd. And from there, I will start. So I will say x square plus y square whole square is equal to this. And this square is becoming, this is an integer is given in the problem, and integer square is integer. So integer minus integer, again integer is equal to 2x square y square, right? So x square y square is integer by 2, and let's put xy is equal to m by 2 in it. So m square by 4 is equal to integer by 2. So you get m square is equal to 2 times some integer. So m square is coming as an even number, which is wrong because we had assumed that m is odd.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That is a contradiction which proves that our initial assumption that m is odd is wrong, is not true. Therefore, m must be even, and if m is even, xy becomes an integer. And if xy becomes an integer, our p of n plus 1 is proved, right? P of n plus 2 is done. Is an integer, right?
Yeah.
Because of the factorization that we had done in the previous step, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
So here you should realize here that weak form of induction will not work here, no? Because weak form of induction only assumes this much, right?
Yes.
In weak form of induction, you don't know what to do about the xy into x power n plus y power. Okay, you know what to do about, you don't know what to do about this because you know x plus y into x power n plus 1 plus y power n plus 1 minus. This was the expression for x power n plus 2 plus y power n plus 2, right?
Yes, sir.
So the first thing was fine because the second to last step is fine. First step is also fine, but you don't know what to do about this step. Is everyone following what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we assumed this step is also true, that's why our problem became much easier. It was only proved that xy is an integer, right? So that's how we are applying this different method of induction. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Next one does not use the strong form. It uses the weak form only. But next one is slightly complicated because of the trigonometry that is involved in question 3. Question 3 is saying let x is belonging to 0 to pi by 2 and n is a positive integer greater than equal to 1. Positive integer greater than equal to 1. Greater than 1. You have to prove that 1 by sine power nx minus 1 multiplied by 1 by cos power nx minus 1 is greater than equal to 2 power n minus 2 power n by 2 plus 1 and plus 1. This is the statement. Now, this statement obviously looks very complicated. Nobody has any intuitive idea of how to solve this, right? Like it's not like there is some obvious trick here that I can see. Is anybody having some great ideas to prove this without induction?
So I was thinking that
Without induction would be quite hard, I think.
yes. I was thinking
I don't think
plus cos
you
by
don't have a starting point. You don't know what to do. What you can do is multiply first. You can say multiply this 1 plus 1 by sine power nx plus 1 by cos power nx, and no, it is minus, no? Yeah. So it is, 1 second, it is, these two terms are minus, and then there is a plus this term, right? You have to prove that this is greater than equal to 2 power n minus 2 power n by 2 plus 1, right? So ultimately you can remove these two plus ones, right?
Yeah.
So you can say that ultimately what I have to prove is 1 by sine power nx cos power nx minus 1 by sine power nx minus 1 by cos power nx is greater than equal to 2 power n minus 2 power n by 2 plus 1, right?
Yes.
And now that I think about it, there might be something. I think it could be AMGM, dude. It looks like AMGM.
Also,
I feel like it is AMGM, but one second. Has everybody heard of AMGM?
Yeah.
yes.
All three have heard of AMGM, no? Okay. So you say that a plus b by 2 is greater than equal to root ab if a and b are positive, are both positive. AMGM only applies on positive quantities. You can
Yes.
also extend it as a plus b plus c plus so on plus n by n is greater than equal to nth root of a into b into c till n. Okay, so I am thinking here how to apply AMGM. See, the point is that product of this is becoming this. No, that's why I'm thinking of AMGM here. You understand? This is like saying AB minus A minus B, right? Is everyone following what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but still it is quite hard. Like, I don't think it's a very obvious thing.
Is the radical sign still appearing?
There is still some problems here. So I'm sure there will be some clever way to do it by AMGM, but mathematical induction is good because it doesn't expect us to be very clever all the time. You can get away by being dumb like everyone else, but you can follow the process of mathematical induction, right? You don't have to be clever here. So can you prove the base case?
Yeah.
Base case n is equal to 1 is obvious. N is equal to 1, everyone should see that it is becoming equal. Both sides are becoming equal. Actually, you cannot take n is equal to 1 because n is supposed to be a positive integer greater than 1, no? Base case is n is equal to 2. Right? Base case means the lowest possible natural number from which you start the proof, right? So n is equal to 2 is your base case, so which is very easy to prove now. 1 by
both
sine
sides
square
become
x.
Yeah.
0.
No, both sides will become 1. This is equal to cosec square
yeah.
x minus 1 and sec square x minus 1, right?
Yeah.
So that is cot square x into tan square x, which is 1. And this side becomes 2 power 2 minus 2 power 2 plus 1, which is also 1. Right?
Okay.
So you're getting an equality. 1 is greater than equal to 1 is a true case. It's fine, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Now you go to the higher case. So now, assuming that the proposition is true for n, assume it is true for n. We will prove that it has to be true for n plus 1 also.
N plus 1.
So this is the weak form of induction that we are applying. Okay. We are not trying to do all the cases. Correct? So I will do it on the next screen. Okay, I'll just give you 2-3 minutes to try yourself, right? Try it yourself. After writing the n plus 1th thing, how are you proceeding from there? So don't worry about the right hand side right now. So you have to prove that it is greater than equal to 2 power n plus 1 minus 2 power n plus 1 by 2 plus 1 plus 1. See, you cannot think of much if you think about this right hand side, because it's too far away, no? How will, like, it's very different from the left hand side, right? What I'm saying is, don't focus on the right hand side right now. Focus on what can I do to this. I already know one thing. I know 1 by sine power nx minus 1 by 1 by cos power nx minus 1 is greater than equal to 2 power n minus 2 power n by 2 plus 1 plus 1, right? Correct.
Yes, sir.
So can I convert this? Can I convert this and make it look like this so that I can use something like this here, right? That is my only hope, no? Can I simplify this somehow and bring it to look like P of n, right? Just like in the previous question, we factorized it, no? So to make use of P of n plus 1 and P of 1 and so on, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, I want to convert that and try to make use of the stuff that I know. I know P of n is true. I want to use it somehow. So the job is to try to simplify it and bring it in a form where you can use P of n. Okay. So I will just write down a few steps. The first step is just simply multiply and expand it a little bit. It becomes 1 by sine n plus 1x cos n plus 1x minus 1 by sine n plus 1x. Actually, why am I doing that? I will do this instead. I will take denominators. I will take common denominator, sine n plus 1x, cos n plus 1x. And on top becomes 1 minus sine n plus 1x and 1 minus cos n plus 1x, right? Now I will split it apart. Now I'll split it apart after multiplying and all. And it becomes 1 by sine n plus 1x cos n plus 1x from the 1 that comes there minus
Cos
minus sine n plus 1x by sine n plus 1. I'm not cancelling right now. I can cancel. I'm not cancelling because maybe I will need to take common and all later. Cos by cos n plus 1x, sine n plus 1x. And the last term is?
plus 1.
Plus 1, right?
Yeah.
Correct. So this is what is coming. So out of these terms, these three terms, what can I take common, right? What can I take common?
Sin x cos x from denominator.
From the denominator, I can take sin x cos x, yes. Why am I taking sin x cos x? Because I want to preserve n and all somehow. Like, if I take sin x cos x, I will get n powers in the thing inside, right?
Yeah.
I'll get 1 by sine nx cos nx minus, it will become sine nx cos nx. And now I will cancel, right?
Yeah.
So it will become sine x by cos nx, right? Minus, this will be cos x by sine nx, right?
Oh, yeah.
plus 1. Is everyone following what I have done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why have I done it this way? Because I want to write in terms of powers of n. Powers of n like this. So if I expand it, I know what the expansion is. 1 by sine nx cos nx minus, you have 1 by cos nx minus 1 by sine nx plus 1, right? So this looks quite similar to that. Like not exactly, but still quite similar. So what I will do is I will force it to be equal to this.
Yeah.
How do I force? I add and subtract whatever terms are missing.
Yes, sir.
1 by sine x cos x. So I need a minus 1 by cos nx and minus 1 by sine nx plus 1, right? I will just write it there, okay, without thinking much. So then we'll get all the 4 terms here and it will look like this then, right? So I'll just write it as a nice factors and all. I'll write this and I'll write this. And what are the extra terms that I had added? I had added this term, and this term, right?
Yeah.
So I have to cancel those terms. So I have to add plus 1 by cos nx plus 1 by sine nx, right? And I had added a plus 1 also, right? So this becomes minus 1 I have to put, right?
Yeah.
Correct. And 1 second. Minus 1 I have to put, correct? And then I have to write these 2 terms, right? Correct.
Yeah.
Is everyone understanding what is happening? I'm just trying to put the P of n somehow, right? Nothing very difficult, just putting P of n. So I will just write it as 1 minus sine x by cos nx. And this one I'll write as 1 minus cos x by sine nx, right? Minus 1. And this is the P of n, right? And there is a 1 by sine x cos x here. Is everyone following what I have done so far?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so far I have converted my left hand side here to look like this, right? So now at this step, what I can say is that P of n is greater than what? This, right?
Yeah.
So I can, so far all of these steps were having equality signs, right? But now I can say P of n plus 1 will be greater than if I replace P of n with this, right? Is everyone following what I'm saying? I'm saying so far we had done P of n plus 1 was equal to this, was equal to this, was equal to this, right? Finally, it was equal to this, right?
Yeah.
Now I will use the fact that P of n is greater than equal to something, right? And I'll, instead of P of n, I will write that lower thing, right? So P of n plus 1
Yes, sir.
should be greater than equal to that substituted thing, right? Correct.
Yes, yes.
So I will put 2 power n minus this thing inside here. So when you do that, 2 power n minus 2 power n by 2 plus 1, right? The 1 and minus 1 cancel here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will write the resultant inequality on the next page. So what it becomes is P of n plus 1 is greater than equal to 1 by sine x cos x, 1 by sine x cos x, 2 power n minus 2 power n by 2 plus 1, plus 1 minus 1 cancelled, and what you left with is 1 minus cos x by sine nx plus 1 minus sine x by cos nx plus 1, right? This is what I have so far, right? Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
So
why did we write greater than equal to?
because here it was actually 1 by sine, it was equal to this, no?
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
It was equal to this, and that was our assumption that P of n is greater than equal to that thing, no?
Yeah, got it.
Right? So I have used that here, right? And I have written this now. Now we are coming closer to the solution, because now at least see the two powers are coming, you know, at least somehow,
Yeah.
right? We are still a little way off, but now at least it is coming, something similar to what is needed, right?
Yeah.
Now think about it. Now it is about trigonometry, so I will keep this part constant. This is going to be at the top of the screen, this is going to remain there, and we'll worry about this term, and this term. Okay. So
Yeah.
and that is a trigonometric manipulation. So let's try to understand. So what is sin x cos x? You might be familiar with the
Sine
formula.
2x by 2.
Correct. You know this, right? So
Yeah.
therefore we know sin x cos x will be less than equal to half, right? Correct.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
This is true. So therefore, if sin x cos x is less than equal to half, then if I put half here, then it will be greater than equal to that, right? This P of n plus 1 will be greater than equal to that, no? See,
Yes, sir.
think about it in terms of numbers. So if sin x cos x was actually equal to 1 by 3, let's say, right? Correct.
Yeah.
Less than equal to half means it could be 1 by 3, right?
Yeah.
So the real inequality we should have put less than 1 by 3 here, right?
Yeah.
So then it should have come greater than 3 times something, right? Correct. It should have come, when 1 by 3 you put here, it will come 3 times on top, no?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is much weaker. It is definitely true that it will be, if you put half, it will be greater than 2 times, right?
Yeah. Got
Because
it.
actually it will be greater than even bigger thing, right?
Yes, sir.
What I'm saying is I can substitute instead of this, I can write this inequality is still true, greater than equal to 2 times, because I have put half for here. And 2 power n minus 2 power n by 2 plus 1 plus 1 minus cos x by sine power nx plus 1 minus sin x by cos power nx plus 1. Is everyone convinced why I can put half and the inequality is not wrong?
Yes, sir.
Navya, you are listening?
Yes, sir.
You are understanding what is happening?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a class at 10, so will we finish by that time?
Yeah. You have a class at 10.
Yes.
What class is this to?
So physics class.
Okay. That is a little strange, but fine. So this part is clear. So that is useful, because now I can replace the two here, and then it works out, because finally we need powers of 2, remember. So this I have replaced. So what to do about these two, right? I have to do something about these two also. So what I will do is I will try to understand if I replace it by some lower value, right? Then my inequality is still correct. No, if I have something like 1 minus cos x by sine nx plus 1 minus sine x by cos nx is greater than equal to a. If I say a here, then inequality is still valid, no?
Yeah.
Right? Instead of this, I will write a, whatever a comes, right? Correct. So what I will do here is notice that each of these terms is positive in itself. Each of the terms is itself positive. Because 1 minus cos x is positive, no? Because cos x has to be less than 1.
Yeah.
Notice that in the beginning, the question had said x belongs to 0 to pi by 2, not including 0 and pi by 2, right? So
Yes.
both cos x and sin x are positive and both of them are less than 1. So 1 minus cos x and 1 minus sin x will be positive in this region, right? So what will happen is both the quantities are positive and you have to find the lowest possible value of a plus b. So by AMGM, I will say a plus b is greater than or equal to 2 root ab, right? A plus b will be greater than or equal to 2 root ab, no? So this will, is everyone clear on that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Root of 1 minus cos x, 1 minus sin x by sin nx cos nx, right? This is the value that I want to get. What is the value of this, right? Then I can replace that here and I will probably get the answer. So let's try to figure this one out. So this becomes this becomes 1 minus sin x by 1 minus into 1 minus cos x. So I will write it like this: 1 minus sin x, 1 minus cos x by sin nx cos nx is equal to 1 by, take sin n minus 2x cos n minus 2x, and this becomes 1 minus sin x, 1 minus cos x by sin square x and cos square x, right? Sin square x and cos square x. Correct. I have not done anything. I've just took the 2 here. And sin square will be 1 minus cos square, and cos square will be 1 minus sin square. So this thing.
Okay.
What?
So could
Yeah,
you
one.
that?
It is just straightforward simplification, dude. See the step.
1 second. Let's look at sin nx cos nx. Yes, okay.
I'm cancelling a minus b with a plus b and a. This step is also obvious because sin square x is 1 minus cos square x. Cos square x is 1 minus sin square x, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can be written like this. Now I have basically something like this: 1 by sin x cos x to the power n minus 2 here. And here I have 1 plus sin x plus cos x plus sin x cos x. Right? Correct. Now I will just rub off some space. I still have to estimate a value for these things. So I need to still find some number values here. So how will I find number values for this? That is the whole thing. So if sin x plus cos x is equal to t, right? Then what is the whole square? Whole square is what? 1 plus 2 sin x cos x is equal to t square, right?
Yeah.
So sin x cos x is coming out to be what? T square minus 1 by 2, right?
Yeah.
So now look at this denominator part. Denominator is 1 plus t square minus 1 by 2, right? Right?
Yeah.
So this is becoming 2 plus 2t plus t square minus 1 by 2. So that is t square plus 2t plus 1 by 2, right? Which is t plus 1 whole square by 2. Right?
Yeah.
So t plus 1 whole square by 2. This is the value of this, right? And now t, what is the maximum possible value of t? If x goes from 0 to pi by 2, t can go to root 2, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Because when you have 45-degree angle, you will get 1 by root 2 plus 1 by root 2, right?
Yes, sir.
That is the maximum possible value here. So what is the maximum value of t plus 1 whole square by 2? It can be up to root 2 plus 1 whole square by 2, right?
Yes.
Is everyone following what I'm saying? Sin x plus cos x maximum is root 2. So t can go up to root 2, right?
Yeah.
So maximum value of this becomes, this whole fraction maximum value is becoming root 2 plus 1 whole square by 2, right?
Yeah.
So I will just write that here. So what I get is, and sin x cos x value was what? It was less than half, right? So maximum value of sin x cos x is half, right?
Yes, sir.
Sin x cos x was less than equal to half. This whole 1 plus sin x plus cos x plus sin x cos x is less than equal to root 2 plus 1 whole square by 2, right? Correct.
Yeah.
So in the both of these terms are in the denominator, right? Both of these terms are in the denominator, and if I replace the denominator terms with the largest possible values of those denominators, right, then the greater than inequality is still valid, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, this is slightly
Yeah.
tricky to understand, but think about it. If I have something is greater than 1 by x plus 1 by y, and x is the largest, you can put x as the largest possible value of that, right?
Yeah, it will go smaller.
So then it becomes smaller, no? So x will be greater than that, right? It will still be, inequality is still valid, right? So what I have is the bracket inside this bracket. I have been working on this bracket so far. So I will just rub off some space here, and I will write what is the thing which is inside the root. So inside the root part, inequality is greater than equal to 1 by 2 to the power n minus 2 multiplied by 1 by root 2 plus 1 whole square by 2, right? This is this part, right? Correct. Because sin x cos x is less than equal to 1 by 2, right?
Yeah.
So 1 by 2 to the power n by 2. And then I have to take a square root of that and put a 2 on top, right? Because I have this, right? Correct.
Yeah.
So this becomes, now see what the root simplification becomes. The root becomes 2 power n minus 2 on top and plus 1. So 2 power n minus 1 by root 2 plus 1 whole square, right? And there is a 2 outside. So this becomes 2 power n minus 1 by 2 multiplied by 2 and divided by root 2 plus 1, right? After taking out the root, right?
Yeah.
And 2 into this will be 2 power n minus 1 by 2 plus 1, which is n plus 1 by 2 by root 2 plus 1. Correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
This has come for this entire part now, right?
Okay.
Now see, it becomes 2 power n plus 1 by 2 whole by 2 divided by root 2 plus 1. And you have to add this to this. Again, I will rub off some space and I will do it here only. So what you get, you will now see that it will nicely simplify and work. Like there's a lot of trigonometric, what is the maximum value of this? All of these were involved, but technically we have not done anything very complicated here. So see 2 power n minus 2 power n by 2 plus 1 plus you have 2 power n plus 1 by 2 by root 2 plus 1, right? This is inside the bracket and there is a 2 outside and there is a plus 1 here, right?
Yeah.
Correct. And this becomes 2 power n plus 1 minus 2 power n by 2 plus 2, this multiplication, plus 2 power n plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by root 2 plus 1 plus 1, right? Correct?
Yeah.
And multiply this with this. So now it becomes 2 power n plus 1 plus half, right? Correct? Correct.
Yeah.
Minus 2 power n by 2 plus 2 plus half plus 2 power n plus 1 minus 2 power n by 2 plus 2 plus, oh wait, I should have done, okay, actually don't do this. This is annoying me. Multiply by root 2 minus 1. No? Rationalize this,
Oh, yeah.
right? Why don't we rationalize this? 2 power n plus 1 by 2 plus 1 multiply by root 2 minus 1, and denominator become 2 minus 1, 1, right?
Yeah.
So this becomes 2 power n by 2 plus half plus 1, and multiplied by root 2 will get another half, right? Minus 2 power
Yeah.
n plus 1 by 2 plus 1, right? So this is becoming n by 2 plus 2, right? See?
Yeah.
And that is cancelling the n by 2 plus 2 here,
Oh, yeah.
right? And what is happening is you're getting back just these three things, right?
Yeah.
And that is becoming the statement that we were supposed to prove.
Okay.
Like, it is complicated because it is a little, you have to be very careful about each power and everything.
Yeah.
But technically, if you think about it, the statement itself, what are the key ideas that we used? We said P of 1 was obvious. P of 1 was obvious. Assume P of n. And when you try to prove P of n plus 1, convert it in such a way that it includes some P of n form, right? We simplified it and took factors out to keep the P of n form alive there, right? Because P
Yeah.
of n gave us an inequality on 2 powers, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Then once you replaced the inequality, you got a greater than equal to some 2 power something plus some trigonometric stuff, right? The trigonometric stuff, you have to be careful about what is the maximum value of this, right? You understand? Later we were doing this kind of thing, 1 minus cos x, 1 minus sin x. What is the maximum possible value of this? Things like this, right?
Yeah.
This is the part that you have to be careful about. We did this. We took out sin x cos x to the power n minus 2 and made it 1 by 1 plus sin x, 1 plus cos x. And then took sin x plus cos x is equal to t, and you got the maximum possible values of this. This is obvious, and this also you got. And it's after that just replacing values. The question is hard because it is easy to make mistakes in the replacements. But technically, nothing very difficult here other than how did we get this expression? We did an AMGM in one step. We did an AMGM here, right? Before this. You remember?
Yeah.
We got this, had two separate fractions we had, which were trigonometric in nature. We did AMGM and got it into one. So, but the key idea is that weak form of induction gave the answer, right?
Yeah.
Weak form of induction, you just took P of 1, P of n, and from there, we were able to prove P of n plus 1. And if someone tries to prove it in any other way, it will be quite hard. Like, I don't know how he will start also. There could be some AMGM solution, but it will be really tricky to solve. Is everybody understanding that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have discussed, we'll stop here. We have discussed the first three. In the first three, the second question was strong form, and third question was weak form of induction, right? So I have written down the statements. Try to do question 4 and 5 and the assignments. Hopefully you have understood the idea, right?
Yeah.
You've understood the idea of the whole induction thing?
So will every question be as long as this one?
Yes.
Okay.
It will obviously not be as long, no? But what is this question? This question is telling me ki, why are you scared of long questions? What is the problem?
So long questions generally have more steps, and more steps obviously means more room for error. That's...
So what if every question was this? Every question in RMO or INMO will be this long. Like even if here it was calculation intensive, There you will have to actually think of new things. So if you want to clear RMO, INMO, prepare yourself for that. You cannot be like, it should be very simple. No, it should be done in 10 minutes, 5 minutes. If you prepare yourself for that, then obviously you will not be able to do anything. Don't be scared of the length and all, dude. Who cares? It is long. So what? You have 4 hours to solve 6 questions. What do you expect the questions to be? Long only, no?
Yes.
So don't worry about such things. Don't worry about size of questions and number of questions and things like that. Just focus on, are you getting the idea? Can you try yourself? Are you scared of it? Don't be scared is the point. Don't be scared of applying induction and be frustrated and keep trying. The idea is to keep trying. Okay. Question 4 and 5. I will give you hints if you should try it yourself. If you are stuck somewhere, I'll give you hints later. But try these questions for sure. And the assignment. Assignment has several very easy questions. So it will not be like every question is difficult. So try the easy ones. You will get confidence as you go ahead. Okay. Is everyone understanding what they have to do?
Yes. Sir, could you share the recording of the class?
Yeah, I'll put it up. It might be on YouTube. I will send you a link. Also, please try to do the assignments. Okay. If you are stuck somewhere, reach out to me during the week. Fine. Is there any problem, Hitarth, Keshav, anything you have to say?
No,
sir.
Okay. So you know what you have to do, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just watch it twice. I mean.
Yeah, you can watch the lecture again. It will be available to you.
Okay.
I will send you the link on the group and all. And just follow the steps. Try the questions. Question 4 might be slightly hard. 5 is not so hard in the in-class discussion problems. And if you are stuck on something, move on to the next questions. The assignment, the first 5-6 questions in the assignment are totally doable. You can do it. Okay. So don't give up and all. Okay.
Yes.
Fine. I'll see you guys next week. We will start with divisibility in number theory next week. And in the middle of the week only, I'll be probably sending you the assignments and stuff. The problem set for the divisibility week. Okay. So
sir, just a question. So you will send us the problem set before the class happens. So do we go over the problem set once before the class or what?
Most of the time what will happen is that you will be stuck with the previous week's problem set only, right?
Okay, yeah.
So there will not be enough time to go to next week's problem set. I'm hoping that I will be able to send you the next week's problem set before Wednesday. But maybe I will send to you on Wednesday. It's fine. Work on the current problem set. Make sure that current problem set you have understood as much as possible. Okay. We'll go ahead, and if you are stuck on something and you've tried a lot, then send me your doubts and all. We'll discuss on the group. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's all for now. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night.